Start recording. Stop recording. Button.
Hey everyone, this is James, your openly gay and blind metalhead. I apologize for all the throat clearing that you might hear in this video, but I've been relocated to a new apartment in a new building while they do renovations, and I don't know if it's all the dust in here or dirt or whatever it is, but it's been hell with my sinuses. So anyway, it's been a while since I've done a video, and I wanted to put one out here, and I do have a good reason for that. Here at this point, I'm just pulling up some information real quick. Shit. Excuse me. All right, so I've got some sad news for you all, and I was pretty shocked when I read about this myself. And by the way, I've got the Muslim Side of Monrovio album by Marco Hietala playing in the background, and that's not necessarily by accident either. All right, so I'm getting some information pulled up here because, and this is the news that I wanted to bring you all. Marco Hietala is no longer with Nightwish. Yeah, that was, I was pretty shocked by that too, and pretty saddened. And I'll get to the reasons of how that happened and why here in a minute. But I need to get some stuff pulled up because I know some of the basics, but I want to get more into detail. Yep, I'm on my dinosaur laptop, so we'll see if how this handles pulling up some of the websites, because I'm only into the at this point I'm pretty much into the MBs of storage. I've used up all my gigs over the last 7 or 8 years of having this laptop. Yeah, and it's interesting because Tuomas Holopainen of Nightwish, the keyboardist slash lyricist slash front slash leader of the group, put out a video here a couple months ago on YouTube, and he was talking about how I think the video was titled something like I can't take another lineup change or something like that, and of course, obviously, he was referring to all the he was referring to when the when they had to replace the vocalist like 3 different times, Tarja, Annette, and then Floor, and obviously he was saying in the video that he couldn't deal with another lineup change if they had to. Oh yeah, and then they had to oust Sammy Vanske in the late '90s because he was their original bassist, and he had to be ousted. Not in the late '90s, the early 2000s, which is what created the space for Marco to come in the first place. They had to oust Vanske because of drugs. Yeah, I forgot about that one. So when I saw Tuomas's video about that, it's like, oh, I bet you can't take another lineup change. And yet here we are with Marco Hietala leaving the group. So I pulled up this article, and I'm going to just kind of go through it and see if it gives all the in-depth reasons that I saw on the Nightwish Facebook page that talks about it. So here it says that Marco Hietala, Marco Hietala has quit both Nightwish and his public life, and he blames he basically blames chronic depression and disillusionment with the music industry is the reasons why. Which, yeah, I'm not someone who's in the music industry, and I don't work for or in the industry in any capacity at all. But I've read things and heard things that really just show like what a complete shitfest it can be. From like artists not getting their royalties to, or at least not getting enough of the royalties that they're promised to them signing really shit contracts that they don't understand or that haven't been explained to them that well. That's what happened with Ricky Martin when he was putting out his first album. No, I'm not talking about the La Vida Loca album. I'm talking about his first solo album from 1991. He had a guy come up to him and say, Ricky, I need you to sign this contract or I'm going to be fired. Well, Martin, according to the account, had no legal representation there with him, so he felt pressured to sign it, and of course I'd have to go back and read the account, but basically it cheated him out of a lot of the money that he was supposed to have gotten, right? And of course that's the common complaint that you hear. And then you hear, excuse me, you hear everything from that to they're not being given too much or any creative control over their music, so they hardly get to pick what their music sounds like. They don't get much of a say on the way things should sound or the way things should appear. And then, of course, you get like incidents like what happened to Kesha, where Dr. Luke was sexually assaulting her and basically making her put out the music that he wanted her to put out. Otherwise, he'd go public with what they were doing or make it look like it was her fault. That's something I'll have to read up on as well, because I'm still not clear as to like what happened, what the specific details were at that point. And it doesn't, I mean, for the sake of context, I want to get familiar, but it doesn't fucking matter. I mean, Dr. Luke's obviously a scumbag, and he took advantage of Kesha both sexually and vocationally, and that's, I mean, it's such a fucking predatory thing to do, right? And, you know, so you have stuff like that goes on. So to hear Marco talk about, well, I'm completely disillusioned with the music industry, well, no fucking wonder. So let's go on and see what this says. So he talks about, and some quotes that there, or some paraphrasing that they give from him from a lengthy Facebook posting, that he cites, again, chronic depression as well as disillusionment with the music industry as his reasons for leaving. I'm talking about Marco. That's why he left his public life and Nightwish. And that he goes on to say that it would be dangerous for him and everybody around him to continue on as he was doing. Yeah, that sounds pretty ominous. He goes on to say that he doesn't think that he'll be gone for good. And he goes on to say, "Dear people, I'm leaving Nightwish in my public life. For quite a few years, I've not been able to feel validated by this life. We have streaming we have streaming company big guns demanding 9 to 5 work from artists. Yeah, so it basically says that they got like streaming platforms demanding 9 to 5 work from artists of inspiration. I don't know. Of course, you know, keep in mind that English is Marco's second language, so some of this might be awkwardly worded. And then he goes on to say that they unfairly share the profits. And he says that they're the banana republic of the music industry. then he goes on to say that that the shit. Then there's like, he talks about how the he talks also about how tour promoters basically take out percentages from their merchandise. Then they pay. Then he goes on to say that they're paying dividends to Middle East, and then something about how theocracies can take some of the money without being jailed. They're apparently as hypocrites. I don't really. I was gonna be honest. I I read the statement for the first time, and then I had to read it a second time. This was a few days ago, and I'm reading through it now. It still doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand what this whole like this little jab at the Middle East was that Marco did. I mean, I know that he's not. I know that he's pretty anti-theistic in his views. And I know. I mean, he's criticized religion at length in his songs, and has made a couple of snipes at religion in a couple of interviews. But yeah, so I don't really quite understand what this what he was talking about with the Middle East here. But I mean, I can surmise from what he's saying here that that you got some of like the people, the government in the Middle East, where they're politicizing their religion to essentially be assholes to people. That they're taking some of the money off the top without, and that maybe if they take some of the money off the top, then they'll keep people from going to jail or something. I didn't quite understand that. So let's go on with. So he basically goes on to say that for the past year, because having to stay home, obviously he doesn't name it, but it would most likely be because of COVID, that he came to understand that he needed that validation, and especially if he's going to sing and perform. And then he mentions in his book, he put out a book here recently called Stainless. It's not in any accessible format, so I'm not going to be able to read it anytime soon, obviously. But he mentions in the book that he's a chronic depressive, but still that he's fine. He's okay. He's not in any danger, and that he's got his wife, kids, his dog, and stuff like that around him. And goes on to say that he doesn't think he'll be gone for good. Then he just basically goes on to say that his birthday is on January 14th. That'd be his 55th birthday, so happy belated birthday, Marco. Then goes on to say that it'd be unfair to blame Tuomas. Of course, Tuomas Holopainen, that's Tuomas Holopainen, the leader / keyboardist / lyricist of the group, Nightwish. So he's basically saying, don't blame Tuomas for this. This is all on me. And then he says something about like, conspiracy is the word of the day, and for people who like them, I need to say that my birthday is on January 14th, or my 55th birthday is on 14th of Jan, and I've certainly done my time. Blaming Francis Thomas, blaming Thomas is both an insult to him and my free thinking. This is a very sad thing to all of us. Have a care, please. But of course, now we'll know if some go there on purpose. So then he just basically goes on to say to let him be for this year, and that he has some reinventing to do, and then he'll tell everybody about it on sometime in 2022. And then he just closes with, "I'm so sorry about this, Marco Hietala." And then there's a PS, and then it says, "Tony Ianni is an exception. to the No Contact Whatsoever. Childhood hero takes the precedence. Well, and so obviously I paraphrased some of that, and then I repeated some of the quotes word for word with some of it. So I probably didn't help with the coherency of it with my paraphrasing, but it's bottom line is Marco left Nightwish, and so I want to give my thoughts after reading that. And some of these are going to not be very.
Stop camera chooser. Stop recording button.
Yeah, some of these are not going to be really easy to hear because it'll involve kind of some criticism of Nightwish a little bit. Because Nightwish had put out their last two albums, Endless Form's Most Beautiful in 2015, and then their album Human Nature here back in April of this past year. Both albums, they both have like a, I mean, they're metal. I mean, they got the metal elements in them, but a lot of people have said that there's kind of like some just new directions, like where they don't say that there's something missing exactly, but there's not the total hard driving aspect of the metal that there once had been. And a good example of this would be like on the song. Well, I don't know if it would be a good example because, and this is the thing that I kind of want to remind people of who've been longtime Nightwish fans. Nightwish have never done an album in which it's all metal all the way through. Their song "Angels Fall First" off of their album of the same name was an acoustic song essentially, and not metal. And then of course you have like Eva off of Eva, and then the Islander off of Dark Passion Play by Nightwish, and of course they have different sounds. Like the Islander is a Celtic sounding song, and then Eva is like slow rock / orchestral sounds. So they've not been literally 100% metal in all of 100% of their albums. They've had their acoustic passages, and then some classical passages, and then their folk elements. So now that I look back on it, I kind of have to, I don't know that I disagree, but I have to say that for the people that are saying, well, they moved into a new direction with Endless Form's Most Beautiful and with Human Nature. Lyrically, yes. Instrumentationally, not necessarily. Although, yeah, there was a lot more classical on Human Nature, especially with the second disc, which made up their typical really long track that they've been doing on their past several albums. That was all classical with a little bit of Celtic thrown in. So that was a little bit of a change for them. I was going to say Harvest has kind of a lighter tone to it on the Human Nature album, but I mean the metal does come in here after a couple of minutes, so you're still getting that folk sound, the acoustic sound, and the metal sound. So, but yeah, lyrically they definitely changed because Tuomas talks about with Endless Form's Most Beautiful that he got the inspiration for that album because he wanted to do like a naturalistic, a naturalistic view of the world rather than a fantasy view of the world as they've been doing in most of their other albums. And he credits well, not literally credits, but he basically cites Richard Dawkins and a couple of the other new atheist authors as ones who got him into wanting to explore on his next album or a couple of albums the naturalist point of the world, and so that's where the inspiration for Endless Form's Most Beautiful came from, and slightly to a degree Human Nature as well. But my point of bringing those albums up is that I do kind of wonder if this was starting to happen, this disillusionment that Marco had although he talks about in the last, like within this past year where he had to stay home a lot, that this really started to affect him. I really can't help but feel like that this was possibly coming for quite a long time, because, and of course this is all conjecture on my part. I don't know any of this for sure, so you're gonna have to just like take this with a grain of salt. And some may say I'm reading too much into it, and maybe I am, but on the parts that Marco did sing by himself on Endless Forms Most Beautiful specifically, there was the bridge of Weak Fantasy that he sang on the second song of the album, and then there was a few verses that he sang on The Greatest Show on Earth, the closing track of the album, and he didn't sound like himself in those. Well, and then all the rest of the tracks of Endless Forms, he would just sing backing vocals with Troy, while Floor did the lead vocals. And that was something too. Like they yeah, he would do like backing vocals as well, and that's what he's credited as on all their albums that he's been on since Century Child. But he would do a pretty good amount of lead vocals as well on the last few albums up until Endless Forms Most Beautiful, and then on Endless Forms it just was him being pushed back to being, as far as backing vocalists go, he ended up being pushed back to just being a backing vocalist, along with Troy whenever Troy wasn't playing the pipes. And then you heard Floor's vocals and stuff like that. And then, like I said, there was those two little parts that I mentioned that Marco did solo vocals on for Weak Fantasy and The Greatest Show on Earth. And so on those, he didn't sound like himself, like I said. He almost, his vocals didn't sound the strongest on Weak Fantasy. And no, I'm attempting to not make a pun there. But no, they sounded a bit thin and slightly weak, to me anyway. They didn't sound like what you typically hear from him. And then on The Greatest Show on Earth, he sounded to be perfectly blunt about it, he sounded slightly like he was mumbling or just really, really haggard. And I'm not saying that he was doing any of that on purpose or that was what he was going for, but he sounded really off on that album. And with the exception of bass and backing vocals, they didn't really do too much with him on that album. And then, of course, on Human Nature, they have him more or less doing kind of the same format, but he does lead vocals on one of the songs. So it kind of makes me wonder if, even as far back as Endless Forms Most Beautiful, was he starting to feel this way and starting to have possible, like, was that starting to show up in some of his performances? Now, on his solo album, Most Inside in Rovio, and its English translation, Pyre of the Blackheart, you don't hear anything like that. He's in full form, raucous vocals, mixed with some of the gentle vocals, stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know what the hell was going on with his vocal delivery on Endless Forms, but it does kind of make me wonder, in light of the statement that he made, was he starting to have some trouble even as far back as at that point? And before I go on with this, no, I'm not at any point gonna, should I make any subsequent videos about this, I am not gonna get into a big let's bash Tuomas Holopainen fest. I have my own thoughts about what might have happened between like them having to replace the two different female vocalists with Floor. But that's a video for, well, I'd rather it not be a video for another day, because I don't want to get into that whole thing because I think it's a needless distraction, and it just isn't necessary. But I do have my own thoughts on where Tuomas fits in with that whole fiasco. But I'm not going to, at any point where Marco is concerned, make any videos bashing on Tuomas and, oh yeah, it was his fault, that rat bastard, and stuff like that, because I don't think it was. I think that the statement was every bit what Marco said it was. When you start having issues with chronic depression, and you start having and then of course Marco has made a few statements over the last several years about having problems with drinking. There was a point at which he had to give up alcohol because he was starting to have problems with it, and I don't know. He never goes into detail about if they were physical / medical problems or psychological problems or what it was, but he's made statements in the past saying that he needed to not drink anymore. So yeah, when you have stuff like that you're trying to manage, and then you have chronic depression on top of it all, and then you have shit going on like having to stay home for long periods of time, especially in light of like COVID and stuff. Yeah, you're going to need to really do self-care, and if self-care is something that everybody should, I think, no matter how healthy or not healthy they are, but you especially need to do it if you got like the mental health issues that Marco has and stuff like that, because to not self-care is to ensure that whenever your mental health issues really do flare up, then you may or may not have the strength, and then that's when you could possibly get into possibly having to be hospitalized or whatever. So, yeah, I know I said the statement slightly here a few minutes ago didn't really make too much sense. I just mean that it was kind of hard to follow some of it because of like the wording of it, and not understanding where a few of the points fit in and like in what context and stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, Marco gave his reasons for leaving Nightwish in his public life, trying to manage chronic depression issues, getting himself out of the dark place that he's in and trying not to be there. And then he also did go on to say, and I don't think I mentioned this, but he did go on to say that the current projects that he's been working on over the last few weeks and months, that he's wrapping up production on, one of which was obviously the song Tuonela by Therion, on which he provides guest vocals. He's kept his word to stay on with those and to basically help out with those like he had been doing, but any future projects are pretty much shelved right now for all the reasons that he said, the mental health, and then just trying to get back more or less into a better mind space. And no, I agree with Marco that no, we don't need to be blaming Tuomas, and so to close this video, you're not going to hear me in subsequent videos, should there be any about this topic. You're never going to hear me talking about, Tuomas Alpine and that rat bastard, it's his fault that Marco left, fuck him. You're just not going to hear that from me. That it's unproductive, and I don't think that it was Tuomas' fault, and I think it's every bit the reasons Marco gave for leaving Nightwish, I think, are every bit the reasons that he stated in the document. So to close out with my final thoughts, I'm sad that Marco left. I do wonder what this is going to mean for the future of Nightwish. Whenever they start touring again and whenever they start putting out a new album. Now, I mean, unless he's worked out his issues by then it's going to be interesting to find out what that means for the direction of Nightwish. And so yeah, I mean, I'm sad that he's gone. I mean, I wished he could have stayed on with Nightwish. And now one of the groups never been mentioned, never having gotten mentioned in that letter, was Marco's original group called Taro. And again, this is speculation. There's no hard facts here. The only hard fact is that Taro's drummer had passed away in, I think it was like 2015. And of course, Taro had never released an original album since their album Gravity of Light back in 2009. And then of course they had a reissuing of one of their other albums, I think it was like 2 years later. With those exceptions, they've not released anything ever since that point, and then especially not after 2015 when their drummer passed away. And so I don't know what the direction of Taro is going to look like, and obviously it's not going to look like much right now, given that Marco's left the public life right now. So I just wanted to bring up Taro because nobody else had. But I think that with the passing of their drummer, coupled with no material output since 2009 and 2011 respectively, coupled with Marco's decision to leave the public life in addition to Nightwish, then I think that it's safe to say, and of course I'll wait for new evidence to come in and document that should I see it, but unless any new evidence comes into the contrary, then I think, given all the above mentioned details, that Taro has, for all intents and purposes, ceased to exist, which that's pretty sad. I mean, they put out some damn good music, but things are what they are, and I'm someone who is a big believer in taking care of mental health issues, should you have any, be they chronic or intermittent or just temporary, and you can only do what you can do. And this notion of, and it kind of gets to this notion of the whole, everybody, particularly in my dad and my mom's generation, where did the whole buck up, toughen up, be a man, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, toughen, play through that pain, bro. And of course, we're now seeing that that's not, that ideology has consequences, most of which are negative. And I think that Marco's definitely a good example of the fact that, toughen up and play through the pain, bro, is just bullshit, and that you have to take time away so that you can regroup, so that you can, and even if you don't know what's wrong with you, you can at least get to the professionals who can help you understand what's going on, and if you already do know, then you can start resuming the self-care that you need to try to work through whatever issues are going on. All right, so to give one final closing, and I forgot to issue trigger warnings. I do apologize for that, but yeah, there are mentions of, at the very least, chronic depression in this video. So if that does trigger you, skip past that, or just look for another video. Now, I'm only going to say this because, not because I'm looking for a fight or looking for confrontation, but I just believe in, at times, being preemptive. I know how comment sections of videos can be, and given that I talked about mental health issues in here, and particularly with Marco Hietala and what he's going through, I'm not someone who's going to police comments to the point of being like the fucking KGB or the CIA or whatever, but if I do at any point see any comments that are ableist or bashing on people's mental health, they're fucking getting deleted, because unlike some of these YouTubers who get all triggered over words, over the idea of like not letting someone have a voice, even the most vile, and they want to dismiss it as cancel culture, it's not my responsibility to give a platform to people who are being assholes towards minority groups. That isn't my job on this channel. So that's the final thought. If I ever at any point, now or in the future, see any any comments of an ableist nature on here, or any other video, the comments out the window. So those are my thoughts on Marco Hietala leaving Nightwish in his public life. If you like this video, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I can be found on Facebook under facebook.com/JamesHeady, JamesHeady. Excuse me. I can be found under Twitter, on Twitter under twitter.com/DuranGreyAddict. That's all one word, DIRENGREYADDICT. And yeah, as for, I think that's pretty much it for my social media links. So, hope everybody's having a good day, and stay safe, and stay sheltering in place if you are. And I'll see you all in the next video.
Stop recording button.